That was
एक
Kal, Aaj
एक
or
मिनिट.
Kal for you. May I request Dr. Avinash Gawande, our superintendent?
नाही, मला एक कंप्लीट डॉक्टर सुमेदार जे अजूनही 95 वर्षाच्या याच्यामध्ये प्रॅक्टिस करतात, सेवा करतात पेशंटची, त्यावर एक शेर सांगतो फक्त. ते ना थक्कर बैठे हम, याही वयात ते सेवा करतात. ना थक्कर बैठे हम, उड़ान अभी बाकी है. ना थक्कर बैठे हम, उड़ान अभी बाकी है. जमी खत्म नहीं हुई, आसमान भी बाकी है.
Hello, thank you, sir. So may I request Dr. Avinash Gawande to felicitate all the speakers. They have done a wonderful job. So let's start from Kal, the Kal of GMC. Dr. Ingole.
I'm sorry, actually, we were in a hurry. We tried our best, पण तरी थोडा उशीर झाला आणि मान्यवरांना थांबावं लागलं. अभयभंग सर, with all the, please pardon us. आणि मला वाटतं चीफ गेस्ट पण आले आहेत, त्यांना थांबावं लागलं. एक्स्ट्रीमली सॉरी फॉर दॅट.
Dani madam, you have to felicitate all of them. Zaza. This session was really enlightening for us, right from the older days to the younger generation, what they think. And they are really practical problems which all of us are facing nowadays.
And after listening to the session, definitely kal aaj aur kal. Modern technologies may come and go, but nothing can replace a dedicated teacher, a knowledgeable physician, and a skilled surgeon.
Along with Dr. Raj Gajbhai, I will also thank my batchmate and my buddy, Dr. Sudhir Nerar, who is the secretary of this whole event. I am very proud of you, Sudhir.
Thank you, Mahatma Madam, for conducting it so smoothly. Chief guest for today's function, Justice Sunil Shukre, has arrived. Welcome you, sir, on behalf of organizing committee. Similarly, Dr. Bang, Dr. Abhay Bang, guest of honor for today's function. We recognize your presence, sir. So moving ahead, we have another important topic, as Dr. Zodpe sir had said, regarding research. So let's hear something about research with the people. And the speaker for this is none other than Dr. Abhay Bang. And may I request the chairpersons for this session, Dr. Charu Lata Ranade and Dr. Mahesh Fulwani, to occupy the chair. Mahesh Fulwani is a renowned interventional cardiologist, director of Sri Krishna Rudayalaya. He is also into a lot of research. Dr. Ranade madam is a renowned and a senior gynecologist. Over to you, Mahesh.
Hello. It's still morning, so good morning to you all. Uh, on behalf of myself and Dr. Mahesh Fulwani, we are thankful to GMC team for giving us chance to, to chair this important session by a very prominent personality, Dr. Abhay Bang. And actually, whenever we say this Platinum Jubilee celebration, I remember one sentence very well. It's a tribute to the past. It's a salute to the present. And it's hope for the future. And here, we all are medical professionals, where we want to get happy learning, happy healing, happy teaching, and happy getting together, meeting with all our friends and colleagues. We have chosen this art of treating and taking care of all the needy personnel. And according to me, today's speaker has made his own mark when it comes to serving the actual needy patients. And over and above that, he is extracting research from such treatments which is highly evidence-based. It's my honor to introduce Dr. Abhay Bang to all of you. Dr. Abhay Bang, 1968 batch, same to my husband's batch. He is a physician, public health researcher, policy maker, social worker. He is founder director of Society for Education, Action, Research and in Community Health at Gadchiroli. He was the one to start working there at Gadchiroli, which was known to be a tribal area, Naxalite area, and he still continues very well working over there. Awards, he has received Padma Shri and Maharashtra Bhushan. If he is very fair enough to not to detail other awards, otherwise it would have taken almost 1 hour to describe. He has received 80 international, national, state and civil society awards, which is a great contribution to our society. And he had 4 books published, and he had 98 research papers and articles to his credit. For his CV, I would like to add one more thing from my side, that I won't say that Marathi word, but he was best friend of my husband, Dr. Sharad Ranade, right from his childhood, and they had taken teachings from the school at Wardha, that is Nai Talim School, which was founded by Mahatma Gandhi ji, and mentor of that school were his parents only. So now I request Dr. A.B., Dr. Abhay Bang, to enlighten us about all his prestigious work. Dr. Abhay Bang, working at Gadchiroli and giving his publications to us.
Thank you, Charu. She was very kind enough to mention that her husband, Sharad, and I were the classmates during our childhood, the Sevagram. How does this move? पुढे कसं सरकतं? कुठून? Thank you. So friends, I am really very thankful that you invited me here to share some of these things you might have heard from me earlier. I am not a very infrequent speaker here, but if you hear something repeated, it is just to reiterate the message that I ultimately wish to convey. As our chairperson Dr. Charu Ranade mentioned. This is the place where I grew up in Sevagram Ashram of Mahatma Gandhi and studied in the school started by Gandhiji just 100 feet away from this Bapu Kuti. It must have been the influence of that very special childhood and moving with Vinoba Bhave in Bhudan Padayatra holding his hand, that at the age of 13, I made a commitment that I shall try to improve health of the rural India. Now, at the age of 13, you don't really understand what you are talking about. And yet, fortunately, practically I made a tryst with destiny that this is what I would like to do. That's why I came to this medical college with very precise dream that I want to acquire medical skills knowledge from here, but ultimately want to use there. 55 years ago, I came to this school, acquired medical knowledge, skills, and also I got my life partner, Rani, in this very school. I'm not going to tell you my autobiography, but then several years later, when Rani and I returned from the US, where to settle, where to start work, and we chose this God-forsaken place, Gadchiroli, where not many people were willing to go at that time. And you see in the map, and I don't have to show it to the people from Nagpur, where Gadchiroli is. Gadchiroli is red area in several sense. Thick forest. Nearly 70% of the land is covered by thick forest. This bridge, and you can see the central pillar has sunk and the bridge is broken. So this bridge represents the state of development in Gadchiroli. And so in 1986, when we went there, still this was the prevalent mode of transport. Sick women, obstructed labor, sick children had to be transported on bullock carts. And intermittently you heard bomb blasts from Naxalite movement. And the highest violent block at that time were Amragad, Etapalli and Dhanora, and so we decided to settle in the Dhanora block. This was our initial place from where for 7 years we did most of our work in Gadchiroli. A local trader had given his godown to us very kindly to establish our office, our research center, our training center. And though I am slightly preempting, but let me tell you, that from this godown we conducted research, 2 of which were published in the Lancet. This is just to reiterate that for doing global standard research, you don't need great buildings and ACs and everything. It can be done from simple places as well. This is our headquarters in the forest of Gadchiroli, surrounded by tribal villages. Our own village, we have named it Shodhagram, a village in search of health care for rural and tribal India, a research village. Many of you have been very kind enough, including Dr. Raj Gajbhie, to have visited there, provided their specialized services in our hospital. We have a hospital here for tribal people, a research center, a training center, and nearly 100 of our colleagues, we all live there for the past nearly 30 years. Now, let me begin the story in Gadchiroli with this girl, 8-year-old girl. And on the very second or third month of our work that this girl was referred to me as a suspected case of heart disease, I thought probably she had sickle cell disease. Tests were not available. It took me some time to establish the hemoglobin electrophoresis. She turned out to be sickle patient. Now, it so happened that this was the first case of sickle ever diagnosed in Gadchiroli district. District itself was new, so not very surprising. But as a young doctor just returned from the US, you can imagine the excitement of being the first case detected. I was very proud. And in that, we conducted a district sample survey of sickle cell disease in Gadchiroli. And the findings were presented to the minister. 15% population had sickle cell trait. 0.8% population had sickle homozygous. The minister announced an award to me. This work was published as a research paper, and minister announced that a tribal medical center will be started at Gadchiroli. Nothing happened. Because like any other government promise, this was unfulfilled. So we went back to tribal leaders, appealing to them that this problem was found among tribal people. You should raise your voice so that government pays some attention to sickle cell disease. Tribal leaders very blankly looked at us and they said, Doctor, sickle is not our problem, it is your problem. We never complained about sickle cell disease. You came and you asked for a drop of blood. We thought a young doctor couple has come, why disappoint them? So we gave you a drop of blood. That is the only relation we have with this disease. You say you found in us. You found the problem, you solve it. It is your headache, it's not our headache. This was the first lesson in research that I got in Gadchiroli. The lesson is, look, when all of us conduct research and the claps that you get at the end of the session, we are actually usually addressing, through our research, we are addressing our peers, medical peers, research peers. But research should address the need of the community I work with and not the medical or research community I report. And that is the mistake. At the very early stage, it's good that we made that mistake because we had this hard lesson that don't do research which will be presented in medical conferences or which will be published in the international journals. Find out what the local people need. And so, Rani and I started going to the tribal villages, sitting around night fire with them. People were available free only during the night time, asking them as to what their health problems were, on which they would like our organization Surge to do some work. Finally, we organized a tribal health assembly. Representatives from 50 villages came and we asked them, tell us your priorities. And through a formal process of voting, in which rural and tribal men and women voted, they selected these as their priority problem. There are several others, I am not listing everything, but malaria, back pain, alcohol and alcoholism amongst men. And they finally said, our children die. Can you do something about it? It was a very moving request. And this last request, our children die. Can you do something about it? I am going to come to that story in little more detail. But let me tell you one brief lesson that I again learned. Malaria, of course, has been known in the health field, in public health field, long. But back pain as a public health priority, never heard of. I had spent time at the Johns Hopkins University of Public Health, never heard back pain as a health problem. But here people of Gadchiroli were saying back pain is our major problem. When subsequently we conducted community-based research, we found 53% of adults in Gadchiroli at any given time had chronic backache. 30 years after, people of Gadchiroli selected backache as a priority problem. Now the global health burden study, which is the largest ever study in the health field, is identifying among the topmost 10 causes of death, disease and disability, they have identified neck pain and back pain. People of Gadchiroli knew it much earlier. And now same global burden of disease study is identifying that of the top 7 causes of death, disease and disability globally, tobacco and alcohol are the 2. People of Gadchiroli knew it much, much ahead. And so, even though they don't have statistics, even though they don't have expertise, but from their own life experience, people know what are their health problems. It is good to go and ask to them. Instead of looking into journals and what will be published in national, international journals, it is good to refer to the people as to what are your problem where we can contribute something. And so, taking this one challenge, we have actually what they provided us is was a lifetime agenda for conducting research in Gadcholi. But in this short lecture, I'm going to cover only one story, and that is child mortality. Now, how much was child mortality? So we established a demographic laboratory of 100 villages in which population census, every birth, every child death was recorded from 1988 till 2023. Recently, the ex-Director General of ICMR, Dr. N.K. Ganguly, came to visit us, and he said that this is the only and the longest population-based laboratory, public health laboratory in the country. Now, so in the very first year when we meticulously recorded every child birth and every child death, we found that the infant mortality rate in Gadcholi was 121. Now, I don't have to tell. And what were the commonest causes? Pneumonia was the commonest causes, accounting for 40% of infant deaths were because of one single cause, pneumonia. Now, globally at that time, diarrheal diseases, malnutrition, immunizable diseases were very well known. I had studied that at the Johns Hopkins. But pneumonia as a childhood mortality problem? And if you have ever seen sick children, especially in rural tribal area, malnourished children with pneumonia, look at their gasping for oxygen and their sunken chest. So how to diagnose this pneumonia in the absence of doctors in the villages of Gadchiroli? Children were dying there. Doctors were not there. You couldn't expect really a doctor to be present in every village in Gadchiroli. So we decided to make use of illiterate dais. Can we make, at least for this one single problem, but can we make a provider of treatment for pneumonia? How will she diagnose? She doesn't have X-ray, she doesn't have stethoscope, she can't even count. So we found out that she was able to count up to 12 because of the earlier dozen system during British era. Even illiterate women could count up to 12. So I developed this breath counter. I'm not going to go in the details of this, but using the WHO criteria that in early neonates, early infancy, respiratory rate more than 60. And then during latter period of infancy, respiratory rate more than 50 in a child with cough, indicated pneumonia. This abacus and sand timer permitted even illiterate TBS to diagnose childhood pneumonia. We conducted a comparison study in which 50 children I diagnosed whether normal or pneumonia using stethoscope, and they diagnosed using their breath counter. Their diagnosis was 82% matched with my diagnosis. So fine, not bad. Illiterate dais also could diagnose childhood pneumonia. It was a life-saving emergency. You couldn't wait for the child to go, and most of the rural children never reached hospital. And we enabled literate community health workers and illiterate TBAs to diagnose childhood pneumonia using simple clinical criteria and use oral cotrimoxazole as the antibiotic. And look at the effect. Before treatment was available in Gadchiroli, the case fatality rate in those children with pneumonia in Gadchiroli was 13.5%. With these community health workers and TBS providing treatment, the case fatality rate dropped to less than 1%. We started this in 1988. Now how much? 35 years this study and this intervention is going on uninterrupted for 35 years. Again, this is the longest field intervention trial in the world. And the very next year, the Lancet published this as a major intervention trial, as the first controlled intervention trial in the world. We showed that the pneumonia could be managed in rural areas without doctors, and which could effectively reduce pneumonia mortality, infant mortality, under 5 mortality. Subsequently, in 1993, when Global Pneumonia Control Program for Children was planned in Washington, 6 studies were used as evidence, and this was ranked as #1 study, and Global ARI program was partly based on the evidence generated by this study. Now, of the remaining infant mortality, 75% was among the neonates. And this was, by that time, this was year 1993. Now, most of the deliveries used to occur at home. And babies, newborn babies in rural areas are tiny, fragile, often uncared for. Mother has to go to the field. There is hardly any protection. And if you go in the delivery room, this photograph I took in the village called Mudza. The baby was born 6 days ago. You can see mother still lying on the charpai, exhausted, pale, hungry, and this baby naked, low birth weight, and old woman, maybe TBA, maybe grandmother is giving bath. Now imagine this neonate is vulnerable in several ways. If it is preterm low birth weight, which nearly 10% babies were preterm born, so it is vulnerable for several complications. Look at the cow dung plastered flooring and the dusty soles of that old woman. And baby's bare hand, baby's scalp is hardly 3 inches away from the billions of bacteria teeming in that dust and that cow dung. No wonder these babies became hypothermic, became hypoglycemic, developed neonatal sepsis, and significant proportion of them died. Neonatal mortality rate at that time when we measure was around 60 per 1,000 live births. So what to do? Newborn care was not accessible. Gadchiroli was a district 300 kilometers long, and only at the district place newborn care was possibly available. Even there, pediatrician often used to be vacant. So if these babies couldn't reach where the doctors were, babies couldn't reach hospital, then hospital or medical science must reach where the babies are. And babies were at home. So medical science must reach at home. So we turned the science of neonatology upside down and created this new design of home-based neonatal care. I said upside down because at that time WHO guidelines were that sick neonate, don't touch. It's a serious emergency. Baby must be sent to a hospital immediately. Now, there were no hospitals here. What do we do? And so we, in the home-based newborn care model, our goal was to provide primary neonatal care with the available human resource in the village itself. And we conducted a field trial with 39 intervention villages and 47 control villages. These 39 women that you see were selected in 1994 to become village level neonatologists. We didn't use that word. I am using that term now. We call them Arogya Doot. Arogyache messengers. Arogya Doot. These were women usually with 7th standard schooling, young women, married but necessarily, who already had experience of childbearing and taking care of their own babies. We selected 39 women from 39 intervention villages and trained them rigorously to provide newborn care by visiting at home. So during pregnancy, at the time of home delivery, and subsequently for 28 days, this trained worker repeatedly made home visits. When we completed their training and we wanted to give actual newborn care in villages in their hands, we had some trepidation. Were we venturing too much? Were we putting those babies in some serious risk of half-baked workers giving newborn care in the villages? So we invited 10 topmost pediatricians of India, including Dr. Meherwan Singh. He was the chairman of that committee that we appointed. Dr. Vinod Paul, who is today Niti Ayog's health advisor. Professor Poddar from Mumbai. 10 top pediatricians. They evaluated our workers and our method for 3 days. At the end of it, Dr. Meherwan Singh, as the chairman of the committee, said, and I am now literally quoting his words. These semi-literate women, trained community health workers of Surge, they know about newborn care more than my MBBS graduates from All India Institute of Medical Science. And with that certification, scientific as well as ethical clearance, we permitted these workers to provide newborn care. Preterm babies, low birth weight babies, they provided care. There were no incubators, there was no electricity, so home-based management. And we developed certain clinical sign symptom as a set of clinical criteria to diagnose neonatal sepsis. There may not be many neonatologists here, but pediatricians know that neonatal sepsis is a very elusive diagnosis. And doing blood culture, CSF culture was just out of question in the villages. So we developed simple clinical criteria like modified Jones criteria. We developed clinical criteria to diagnose neonatal sepsis, which were published subsequently in the Journal of American Academy of Pediatrics. 7 sign symptoms. A combination of these could diagnose neonatal sepsis, and now hold your breath and believe me that the sensitivity and specificity of diagnosis of neonatal sepsis by these workers using this criteria was proved to be better than the trained neonatologist in the nurseries of Boston. The reason obviously being that the neonatal sepsis was much more common in Gadchiroli, rural Gadchiroli, and less common in Boston. And so the possibility of hitting a diagnosis was much better in Gadchiroli. But then that permitted the elusive diagnosis of sepsis also to be made in those villages. And here you are seeing really one community health worker, I lost the slide. Anyway, she was giving injection to a baby who had developed. This was the 7th day, and those criteria were fulfilled. So our worker Kaju Bai from a village called Ambeshivni is giving injection gentamicin. The antibiotic combination chosen was oral course Abaxol and injectable gentamicin. Now you are seeing here the impact. Neonatal mortality rate was the primary outcome, and this is 10-year data from the intervention 39 villages and the control villages where government programs were going on regularly as usual. You can see the yellow line, which is NMR, neonatal mortality rate per 1,000 live births. It's around 60, and with some fluctuations, it remained around 60 for 10 years. Tragically, the control area NMR represents what was happening all over India. In this vast country, where nearly 25 million neonates are born every year, the NMR for 10 years remained nearly at the same level because no new intervention arrived. And the blue line represents the 39 intervention villages. The baseline NMR in both the areas is around 60. And these intervention villages with home-based newborn care, you can see within 3 years it came down to the level of 26. 62% reduction as compared to the control area was unheard of. If in the US, any new intervention shows NMR to decrease by 5%, it becomes a national headline. And here these women from Gadchiroli had reduced it by 62%. And look at the impact on infant mortality rate. Now you are seeing data from 1988 to 2003. The IMR was 121 in 1988. With pneumonia management that you saw earlier, it came down to around 80. And with home-based newborn care from 80, it came down to 30. And it settled at the level of 30 in the year 2003. Very coincidentally, Government of India in 2003 chose this as the national goal to reduce IMR of India to the level of 30. Now Gadchiroli remained poor, Gadchiroli remained away from Mumbai by 1,000 kilometers. Gadchiroli remained illiterate. Gadchiroli remained district without transport and hospitals. And still, these women, trained women, could reduce IMR from the level of 121 to 30. What does it require? Same Kajubai, 20 years later, you can see her hair has now become gray. These are the simple equipments that she needs for providing home-based newborn care. And all this equipment she can carry on a shoulder bag, Shabnam bag. They weigh hardly 1 kilogram. These equipments which costed at that time 1,500 rupees per worker. So this simple set of equipments, which we call HBNC bag, home-based newborn care bag, which later on Government of India replicated and provided to 10 lakh Ashas. So these simple equipments on her shoulder, knowledge in her head, skills in her hands, and compassion in her heart, this trained community health worker can literally become a mobile newborn care hospital. And we have compared the newborn mortality rate for various birth-fed neonates. Newborn mortality rate in the villages of Gadchiroli and 13 hospitals selected by National Neonatology Forum of India, case fatality rates are similar. So this approach is essentially an empowerment approach. When 25 million neonates were born in villages, mostly at home, no medical approach would have worked. No technological approach would have worked. No approach which works in Boston and Chicago and New York and Washington was replicable here. It needed a local approach which would have been robust and feasible to implement in Gadchiroli. And so, it's essentially an empowerment approach. Look at that hut. That woman was helpless, alone in the dark, but opened that one window of knowledge, of skills, of roles, and of empowerment. And that empowered woman, who could be mother, who could be community health worker, who could be a dai, but she can hold the entire family's health, entire community's health on her empowered hands. By coincidence, this is the logo of home-based newborn care. Empowerment approach. This study was first published in the Lancet, again the first study in developing country to reduce NMR by community-based care of newborn care. But subsequently, Lancet historian and editors selected this study as one of the vintage papers ever published in the Lancet. They selected papers from 180 years history of the Lancet as to what they thought were vintage papers. And I have given that volume to this library as a complimentary gift. So if you go through that volume, you will find papers from Ronald Ross, Robert Koch, Louis Pasteur. Then comes Benting and Best paper on insulin. Then Fleming's paper on penicillin, discovery of penicillin. And when you come to 90s, you find there one paper from this obscure place called Gadchiroli on home-based newborn care. Now, with this kind of scientific validity and proven efficacy, Government of India sent a special team from the Planning Commission, because we were struggling at the national level how to reduce IMR of India further. And so this team came, saw whatever it saw in Gadchiroli. They spent few days with us, then went back, reported to the Prime Minister and to the Planning Commission. And in the 5-year plan, 11th and 12th 5-year plan of India, home-based newborn care Gadchiroli model was selected as the national model to reduce child mortality in India. So we were asked to train Ashas, ASHA model was partly based on this, but I say partly because several other models were very effectively flowed into the ASHA model. We were asked to train ASHAs, so we developed a training system. We trained national and state trainers, they trained district trainers, and they trained ASHAs. Eventually, in a very standardized manner, 1 million ASHAs all over India have been trained to provide home-based newborn care. Last year, 1.4 crore neonates in rural India received home-based newborn care. And apart from the several other reasons operating, this is the one reason why the IMR reduced very rapidly in those 5 years, 2010 to 2015 in India. Prabhat Jha has published a paper in the Lancet as to 5-year interval and rate of reduction in child mortality in India. And this period, 10 to 15, is the period when child mortality reduced fastest in India. You can also see now this approach spread to Bangladesh, Nepal, Pakistan, Africa. Later on, UN agency also picked this up, and with the approval of UN agencies and USAID and Save the Children, now this approach is being used in 80 countries world over. So from Gadchiroli to global, that has been the journey of this in search of how do we reduce child mortality in rural areas. Now, from this one story, I want to extrapolate and draw some generalizations and some conclusions. We have some questions, and let's see if we find some answers from this experience. Now, the urgent question before India today is how to provide accessible and affordable health care to 1.4 billion population, living in nearly 1 million locations, villages, hamlets, wadas. How do you provide care to these people? It's a challenge of mammoth proportion. Healthcare cost in India, I'm using World Bank data, not health minister's data, because minister has, I suspect, and several people really allege this, that in the last budget, the health budget was apparently inflated. So the true health budget, as World Bank estimates, is $57 per capita per year in India. Now our health budget is $57. Our people are 1.4 billion, 140 crore people. They are spread out in so many different locations, and yet we are still trying to copy the American model of healthcare, which costs something like this, $10,000 per capita per year. Our situations, our reality, our challenges are so different. Yet we medical people in India are so enamored by the West that we want to repeat what they have already done 30, 40, 50 years ago, and we call it research. It is literally research. You find something which was proven there several decades ago, and then we call it research. And so, this healthcare model, the American healthcare, I'm using America only as a symbol, but it really means that the developed country healthcare model, which is hospital-centric, which is technology-centric, which is extremely costly, is just not appropriate for India. It may become appropriate maybe 40, 50 years later when we are dreaming that we will become a developed country. But today, it is absolutely inappropriate. The medical care models from the West are wasteful. And I don't say this. The American economists and British economists, they themselves say. These models are impossible to sustain here in India financially. And so, what is our alternative vision of healthcare for India? Now, we doctors, when we came out of this great institution, with such a hands-on practical training and with understanding about the problem from rural areas, tribal areas. The one question every one of us faces, and I remember my internship days, where should I go to make best use of my medical education? After nearly 50 years of facing that question, today I can definitely say, go where the problems are and not where the facilities are. Usually, very naturally, like any other human being, we have this first impulse to see, are there enough facilities where I am likely to be employed or I am likely to work? Are there film theaters? Are there malls? Is there electricity? Is there a telephone? Is there operation theater? Is there MRI, CT scan, lab? Yes, but these places with facilities don't need you. There you become a problem. It's better go where the problems are. There may not be facilities there, but there is no dearth of problems to be solved. And an additional advantage, which I had not realized at that time, but the additional advantage is you have no competition. There is such a cutthroat competition in all NEET exam and everything in the world today. For the MPSC examination, 6 lakh youth from Maharashtra are slogging for 3 years, and every year only 300 are selected. 1 in 10,000. That is the competition today, because everybody wants to occupy that class 1 post. So class 1 post ke liye to competition rahegi. Instead of that, go to the places where there are no facilities and where there are only problems. Your life can become very productive without having any competition. What kind of healthcare? Health empowering model and not impoverishing model. I am not using these words only for jugglery. I have already shared with you how the health empowering model could be, where you transfer knowledge, skills, roles and responsibilities to the people, to women who are usually disempowered in villages. They were never going to get admission in my medical college, but they got a few glimpses of knowledge and skills sitting there in Gadchiroli. That was the empowering model. Now the model that we practice in India, and again I am using Planning Commission data and World Bank data, that every year 4 crore Indians are pushed below poverty line because of the cost of medical care. So medical care model that we practice is an impoverishing model, which makes people poor because the cost of care of disastrous illnesses is huge. This is empowering model where you can empower the people in the community to solve their health problem. And finally, how to make larger impact? Everybody wants to make impact. दुनिया में एक ही बार आए हैं तो कुछ तो पगमार्क छोड़ के जाएंगे. How to make impact? I would like to appeal to you, research with the people. What we saw so far is an example of research with the people. When you begin research by asking people as to what are your needs, you don't begin research with each your brain or what will be published in the US journal, but you start by asking to the people what are your needs. And you conduct research by involving people. You develop interventions by empowering people to solve their problem. And finally, when the results come, people benefit. That is the research with the people model. And final question, all of us, doctors, non-doctors, every human being faces this question squarely sometime or later in his life. How to save myself? We all know we have only one life. There is no once more here. I have come on this earth only for once. How do I make best use of this one life, very precious life that I have got? How to save my soul, myself? Mahatma Gandhi's very famous word, which Dr. Sunita Mahatme also mentioned. Be the change yourself that you wish to see in the world. Such change is very much needed in the slums of Nagpur, in the rural areas of Vidarbha, where people are committing suicide, in tribal areas of Vidarbha, where there is a malnutrition and child mortality, where malaria is still rampant, and where Naxalites don't permit several other development activities happen. How do we take health care to these and such places in the Vidarbha where my alma mater is located? So that is the last challenge we have. Our search has not ended. The search still goes on. We are still struggling, still trying to find solution for newer problems, and there will be newer problems, and there will be newer problems. There will be always need for somebody who goes to places where there are no facilities but only problems and only problems. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Padma Shri Abhay Bang sir, for enlightening us about research with the people. We are really scientific people. We are into a lot of research, but our idea of research till now was big, fancy, randomized, controlled, double-blind trials published in some journal of American College of Cardiology. But then you showed that research can and should be done with the people and among the people by showing that infant mortality can be dropped from 121 to 20, or by developing skilled neonates called as Arogya Doot in the periphery, and by showing that a breath counter, simple breath counter decreases the mortalities, the mortality by pneumonia by significant, and that study being published and being counted as the #1 study to develop the pneumonia dropping mortality all over the world. Thank you very much. We are enlightened. We are honored that you are over here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Hi guys, so we are with Dr. Vaibhav, who is a faculty at in the radiology department. So sir has written a book called White Coats. So I would like to ask you, sir, what inspired you to write this book for us?
So basically, White Coats is a medical fiction novel which I wrote back, I started back in 2017. So I thought that there are so many stories about doctors which the common people don't know about our journey and the kind of experiences we have and what makes doctors the way they are. So I thought that this story should be written by somebody. So I just took it upon myself and I started writing it. And it took me some time, but now it is out there and you can buy your copy, and I'm sure you will enjoy this novel, especially medical students and faculty, but also non-medicals. They will get an idea about what kind of trials and tribulations doctors go through.
So guys, it is a realistic depiction, not the realistic depiction. So I recommend you guys to come to Melange and check sir's book out and take your copy as soon as possible. Thank you.
Good morning everyone. We are here with Dr. Narlavar sir. Sir, would you please like to introduce yourself?
Myself Dr. Uday Narlavar. I am Professor and Head Department of Community Medicine at GMC Nagpur, and also holding the post of Vice Dean, and I am also organizing secretary for this Platinum Jubilee celebration.
Definitely, so it's very pleasure to meet you. Sir, you are the organizing secretary, but tell us about the other spectrum of the event. How are you feeling meeting all your batchmates here?
It's a great occasion. We were so many other events we were used to meet with our batchmates, but this is something very special. Incidentally, I was not there in Golden and Diamond Jubilee, so for Platinum Jubilee is the big occasion for me. And I distinctly want to mention one thing, that this time, I think in the history of GMC for the first time, we had a ceremonial march of various batches, and that particular event has given an opportunity to bring all the batchmates together, because usually in such events where there is not any one specific batch, the students of the batches, they are scattered, they don't come together as a whole. but this particular event has given the chance to come all the batchmates together who have registered for this Platinum Jubilee celebration, and every batch was enjoying like anything, and I think that was a very important moment for me, and it was a moment for celebration. Everybody was very enthusiastic, everybody was celebrating, and that gives us the immense pleasure to see. And also I was very happy to meet all my batchmates. So some of them, they were after very long time. So that is what my observation as far as this event is concerned. Overall, there are so many other events which have been organized in this Platinum Jubilee celebration, which give justice and which give opportunities to various batches, right from the first batch up to the last batch. So that is what my opinion about this Platinum Jubilee celebration.
Indeed, sir. The ceremonial march did set the tone for the whole event. Thank you so much for your time, sir.
Thank you.
So hi guys, it is my honor to be with Dr. Devendra Mahore sir, our Honorable Vice Dean of GMC Nagpur. Sir, I would like to ask you, you have spent so many years at this institute. What does GMC Nagpur mean to you, sir?
GMC Nagpur is everything for me because I am born and brought up in GMC Nagpur. My UG was from this college, my post-graduation also from this college. Then I started my career as a lecturer from this college only. And now I have reached to this stage. So it is rightly I can say that born and brought up here. So all the feelings, they are with my alma mater, and I am happy to be the part of Platinum Jubilee, because reaching at this position and being in the organization, the team which is organizing this, it's a huge task, but I feel proud about it, that I am the member of the team who is organizing this event of 75 years.
Indeed, sir. Thank you so much to the organizing committee for absolutely taking care of every little detail that was possible. It's been a fantastic event till now, sir, and I hope everybody is enjoying the event. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Gajbe, Honorable Dr. Ramesh Kumar Baburauji Gajbe. He had served as a government medical officer. He was a convener of Mana Jamaat Action Committee, leadership of Nagpur Vidyan Bhavan Long March to solve the problems of Mana tribe. This was in 1985 to 96, and leadership of various socio-political movements through Chetak Yuvak Dal, Chandrapur. So may I request our chief guest, Dr. Justice Shukre sir, to felicitate Honorable Dr. Ramesh Ji Gajbe. Big round of applause for all these illustrious alumni of our college.
Thank you, sir. Next, we would like to felicitate Dr. Sunil Ji Punjabrao Deshmukh, who had been MLA from Amravati constituency. He has been Vice President, Maharashtra Congress Committee, Vidarbha Irrigation Development Corporation, had been Minister of State Water Resource, Finance, Planning, PWD.
Respected Dr. Anil Ji Bonde, elected as member of parliament,